You bought the car used, 200,000 miles already on it. Everyone told you it was finished. But that same model, cared for by a family outside Nagoya, just crossed 700,000 miles on the original engine. Same steel, same pistons, same design that rolled off the line beside yours. So the answer was never the machine. It was 17 small habits nobody wrote down. Quiet things Japanese drivers did without thinking, passed hand to hand, and the rest of the world simply threw away. I first noticed it years ago in a parking lot in Toyota City, watching an old man wipe his dashboard with a cloth before he even turned the key, and I could not stop wondering what he knew that I didn't. By the end of this, I will hand you the final piece. A maintenance practice tied to a Japanese law passed in 1951, buried in a little record book most owners here have never seen. It works on the car sitting in your driveway right now. No tools, no shop, no new purchase. Let me walk you through exactly how I cracked it. I started where anyone would start, the engine. I assumed the Japanese were doing something special to the motor itself, some secret oil, some magic additive, so I chased it. I read forum threads from owners in Osaka and Sapporo, translated line by line looking for the trick, and I found nothing. No miracle oil, no exotic fluid. In fact, most of them used ordinary oil you can buy anywhere for $30. That stopped me cold, because if the secret wasn't in the bottle, it had to be in the hands, in what they did and when and how often. So I went back further, and this is where the first real clue surfaced. The habit these drivers shared wasn't about adding something. It was about listening. Before that old man ever drove, he would start the engine and simply sit for 30 to 60 seconds, not racing it, not flooring the gas to warm it fast, just letting it idle while he listened. Here is why that matters, and it is pure physics, not tradition. When an engine sits overnight, most of the oil drains down into the pan. The moment you start it, the metal parts up top are running nearly dry for a few seconds. Engineers have a name for this. They call it startup wear, and studies on engine failure have shown that the vast majority of engine wear happens in those first cold moments, not on the highway. The Japanese driver waits. He lets the oil pump push a film of oil back up over every surface before he asks the engine to work. 30 seconds. That's the whole secret to the first habit. And the man in that parking lot had done it every single morning for decades, which is why his motor outlived cars twice as young. But here's what confused me. Waiting 30 seconds is not hard. It costs nothing. So why did the rest of the world stop doing it? Why did my father, and probably yours, learn to hop in, twist the key, and stamp on the gas within 2 seconds? That question is where this stopped being about cars and started being about something deliberate. Because the answer, when I finally found it, made me angry. Somewhere in the 1980s, as cars got faster and driving got busier, an idea took hold in the West that modern engines don't need warming up. Convenience was sold as progress. And it was true enough to sound right. A car will move if you start it and drive off immediately. It just won't move for 700,000 miles. The people selling you a new car every 7 or 8 years had no reason to teach you the habit that would keep the old one alive. A car that dies at 150,000 miles is not a failure of the machine. For the people counting sales, it is the plan working exactly as intended. The Japanese driver was never told to hurry. It had to do with the fuel tank. In thread after thread, older Japanese owners mentioned a rule I had never heard spoken out loud anywhere in the West. They never let the tank drop below a quarter full, ever. I thought it was superstition at first. It is not. Here is the mechanism. Your fuel pump, in most cars, sits inside the fuel tank, and it is cooled and lubricated by the very fuel around it. When you run the tank down near empty, over and over, that pump runs hot and dry, and it wears out years early. Worse, an empty space in the tank fills with air, and air carries moisture. That moisture condenses on the cold metal walls overnight and drips down into your fuel, and water in your fuel system is slow poison. Keeping the tank above a quarter keeps the pump bathed and cool. It keeps the airspace small so moisture can't build. It is such a small thing, a number you glance at, And it can be the difference between a fuel pump that dies at 80,000 miles and one that never dies at all. Now think about how you were trained. You were taught to run it down to the light, to squeeze every last mile out before filling up, because filling up felt like spending money. But you weren't saving money. You were slowly cooking a part that cost $600 to replace, to save yourself one extra trip to the station. That was the moment the pattern became clear to me. Every single one of these habits does the same thing. It trades a tiny, almost invisible effort now for an enormous saving later. And every habit we abandoned did the opposite. We chose the convenient thing that quietly destroys the machine, but I still didn't understand where these habits came from. Random drivers don't all invent the same rules. Something taught an entire country to think this way, and when I found what it was, everything clicked into place. The answer was a law. On June 1st, 1951, Japan passed something called the Road Transport Vehicle Act. Out of that law came a system every Japanese driver knows and most Westerners have never heard of. It is called Shaken. Shaken is a mandatory, brutally thorough vehicle inspection. When a car is new, the first Shaken comes at 3 years. After that, every 2 years, without exception, that car must be inspected down to the brake pads, the underbody, the emissions, the suspension bushings. And it is not cheap. A single Shaken can cost the owner anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 once repairs are added in. Now, most people look at that and see a burden. When I first read about it, I saw a burden too, but I had it exactly backwards. Think about what a law like that does to a whole nation of drivers over 70 years. Every 2 years, someone puts your car on a lift and shows you every small thing beginning to go wrong, while it is still small. A worn bushing, a weeping seal, a brake line just starting to rust. You fix it for $40 now, or you fix it for $4,000 later. Multiply that across every owner every 2 years for 2 generations, and you don't just get well-maintained cars. You get a culture that thinks about a car as something you tend, like a garden, rather than something you use until it breaks. That is the hidden engine behind all 17 habits. Shaken trained an entire country to catch the small problem before it became the fatal one. The old man in the parking lot wiping his dashboard wasn't being fussy. He was raised inside a system that made prevention feel as normal as breathing. And here is what stopped me cold. Almost none of this requires the law. You don't need a government inspection to look under your own car twice a year. The Japanese didn't have a secret. They had a rhythm we were never given and were quietly encouraged to forget, which raised the sharpest question yet. If the rhythm is what matters, and the rhythm costs nothing, then what specific things were these drivers checking that we ignore completely? Because that is where the real damage hides. The third thread I pulled led me straight underneath the car to the one enemy that kills more vehicles than any engine fault ever will: rust. In much of Japan, especially the snow regions like Hokkaido and the mountain roads, they salt the roads in winter just like we do. Salt is what eats a car alive from below, turning solid steel into brown flakes, rotting out brake lines and fuel lines in the very frame that holds everything together. A perfect engine bolted to a rotted frame is scrap. That is how most cars in cold climates actually die. Not the motor, the body around it. So what did the long life owners do? After winter driving, they rinsed the underbody of the car with plain water, a hose. That's it. They would aim water up under the wheel wells and along the frame rails to wash the road salt off before it could sit and eat the metal for months. I tested this thinking against the failure stories, and it held every time. The cars that rotted out were the ones left with a winter's worth of salt caked underneath. The cars that lasted were rinsed. One region even keeps records going back decades, showing coastal and snow region vehicles need far more underbody attention, and the owners who gave it to them kept their cars twice as long. You do not need a special machine. Next time you wash your car, spend 2 minutes with the hose aimed underneath, along the frame behind the wheels. Do it after every snowfall if you live where they salt. In summer, if you're near the coast, do it too, because sea air carries salt just the same. That single habit can add 10 years to a car's life, and almost nobody in the West was ever taught to do it. And that difference, repeated every morning for 20 years, is measured in hundreds of thousands of miles. If these habits resonate with you the way they hit me when I first uncovered them, I put the complete system into a series of books, Japanese Fix, Deep Japanese, and the Full System, where I lay out all 17 habits in full detail, with the history behind each one and exactly how to apply them starting tomorrow. They are available in the description below. A lot of people have told me the record book chapter alone changed how they think about everything they own, not just their car. So I kept pulling the thread, and the second habit I uncovered was even quieter than the first. But washing off the outside was only half of what they understood about rust. And the other half is where I want to stop and talk directly to you, because I know exactly who is watching right now. Maybe you're thinking this is all fine for someone with a garage or a driveway or younger knees that can bend down and look under a car. Maybe you're renting. Maybe you park on the street. Maybe you're 70 years old and the idea of crawling around on the ground is simply not happening, and you're about to decide this video wasn't made for you. It was made for you. This next part especially, because the most powerful habits I found don't require you to touch the car at all. They only require you to change how you use it. And you can start every one of them tomorrow morning, exactly where you live, exactly as you are. The first one is the gentle first mile. Remember that 30-second warm-up? Here is its partner, and it's even more important. For the first mile or two of any drive, especially on a cold morning, you drive gently, low speed. Light on the gas, no hard acceleration, no flooring it up the on-ramp until the engine has come up to temperature. Here is why. Cold oil is thick, like honey. It does not flow into the tight spaces the way warm oil does. When you demand full power from a cold engine, you are grinding metal on metal with poor lubrication and metal parts that haven't expanded to their proper fit yet. The Japanese drivers I studied treated the first mile as sacred. Easy does it until the temperature needle lifts off cold. Then, and only then, drive normally. This costs you nothing. No tools, no money, no bending down. Just patience for 60 seconds. And it protects the single most expensive part of your car during the exact moment it is most vulnerable. The second habit for you is the long drive on purpose. This one surprised me more than any other. If you only ever drive short trips, to the store, to church, to 5 minutes here and there, you are quietly destroying your engine. And here is the reason. A short trip never lets the engine get fully hot. Moisture from combustion condenses inside the engine and the exhaust and never burns off. Fuel washes down the cylinder walls. Acids build in the oil, carbon collects. The car never gets a chance to clean itself. So the old habit, and mechanics in Japan still quietly recommend it, is to take your car on one good long drive at least once a month, 30 minutes or more at steady highway speed. That sustained heat boils off the moisture, burns away carbon buildup, fully charges the battery, and circulates everything the way it was designed to move. Drivers used to call the Western version of this an Italian tune-up, but the Japanese built it into routine, gentle and regular, not a hard thrashing. If you mostly make short trips, this one habit alone can transform your engine's life. Pick a day. Drive somewhere 30 minutes away and back. Your car will thank you in years. And the third habit for you is the simplest of all, and it circles us right back to that man with the cloth. Pay attention. Every single drive, use your senses. Listen for a new sound. Notice a new smell, especially anything sweet, which means coolant, or anything burnt, which means oil or brakes. Watch for a new vibration. Glance at the ground where you park for a fresh drop of fluid. The long life owners caught every problem while it was a whisper. The rest of us wait until it's a scream, until the part has failed and taken 3 other parts down with it. A leaking seal noticed early is a $40 fix. Ignored until the engine runs dry, it is the whole engine. The habit isn't mechanical skill, it is attention, and attention is free. So now you have habits you can use no matter your age, your knees, or where you park. But I promised you the final piece, the one I chased the longest, the one tied to that law from 1951, and it is not any of the things we've talked about yet. It took me the longest to find because it isn't a physical action at all. It's a piece of paper. When I dug into how shaken actually works, past the inspection itself, I found something that every Japanese car carries and almost no Western driver has ever kept. It comes out of that 1951 law and the maintenance culture it created. It's a little record book. In Japan, they call it the Saibi Tekko, the maintenance record notebook. And every long-life car I traced, every single one, had one that was filled out by hand, faithfully, for its entire life. At first I thought, so what, it's a logbook. But then I understood what the log actually does, and it is the quiet key that holds all 17 habits together. Here is the mechanism, and it's beautiful in how simple it is. When you write down every oil change, every fluid top-up, every strange sound, every date, and every mileage number by hand, 3 things happen that change everything. First, you can see patterns no memory could hold. You notice the oil is disappearing a little faster this year than last, a warning of a problem months before it becomes a breakdown. Second, you never miss maintenance, because the book tells you exactly when the last one happened and the next one is due. And third, and this is the part that took me the longest to appreciate, the act of writing it down forces you to actually look. You cannot log the coolant level without checking the coolant level. The notebook is not a record of care. The notebook is what creates the care. It turns a vague intention to take care of the car into a specific ritual with dates and numbers you cannot fool yourself about. I traced this practice back and found it wasn't invented by the government at all. The law of 1951 made inspection mandatory, but the record book habit grew out of something older in Japanese craft culture, the same discipline you see in a chef's knife log or a carpenter's tool record, the idea that a serious person keeps written account of the things they depend on. The car simply inherited it. One nation kept the habit alive because a law made it normal. The rest of the world let it die because nobody was ever asked to keep it. And here is why this is the finale, the thing you can do this week that costs nothing and outweighs everything else. Start your own book, not on your phone, where it will vanish into a folder you never open. On paper, a cheap notebook in the glove box. Write today's date and today's mileage on the first line. Every time you put gas in, glance under the hood and write one line. The date, the mileage, what you checked, anything you noticed. Within a few months you will have something almost no Western driver has ever possessed. A living history of your own car in your own hand that shows you problems while they are still whispers and never lets a single service slip past you. That notebook is the 17th habit, and it is the one that quietly powers the other 16 because it turns all of them from good intentions into a rhythm you actually keep. That old man in the parking lot in Toyota City, wiping his dashboard before he turned the key? I understand him now. He wasn't cleaning. He was beginning a ritual, a daily act of attention that a whole culture had taught him and a whole industry had taught us to forget. The oil warm-up, the quarter tank, the gentle first mile, the monthly long drive, the underbody rinse, the senses on alert, and the little book that holds it all together. 17 small habits, none of them hard, none of them expensive, that turned an ordinary car into one that outlived every expectation anyone had for it. Here is what I want you to feel, standing at the end of this with me. That 700,000-mile car was never a miracle of engineering. It was a miracle of attention, and attention is the one thing that was never taken from you. It was only misdirected, aimed at buying the next thing instead of caring for the thing you already have. You just took it back tonight. You are the kind of person who refuses to believe the machine simply has to die on schedule, who senses that the old ways worked for reasons nobody bothered to explain. Who would rather understand the rhythm than keep paying for the replacement? That instinct is exactly right, and it is exactly what they hoped you'd lose. So tell me one thing in the comments, and be specific, because I read them. Which of these 17 habits were you never taught? Was it the quarter tank rule that surprised you, or the monthly long drive, or the little record book? Write it down below. I want to know which one hit you the way that old man with the cloth hit me. And if you feel what I feel, that there is a whole world of these forgotten methods waiting to be dug back up, then stay with me. Subscribe and stand with the people who are recovering this knowledge one piece at a time, because it is not lost, it is only buried. Next, I'm decoding the Japanese kitchen habit that keeps a knife sharp for 30 years without ever sending it to a shop, and it starts with something most people throw straight in the trash. I found where it comes from. I'll show you. Come with me. Before you go, if this video helped, there's a deeper version waiting for our members. You can ask me your own question, and a real person answers, and you'll be among thousands of folks just like you. Point your phone's camera at the code on screen. It takes less than a minute, and you can cancel anytime, no risk.